Welcome to Center for Creators, Mastermind Conversations. I am your host, Scott Holmes, and our illustrious leader, founder, Christy Russ. We are a community of mastermind, deliberate creators. I know it's a mouthful, but it's meaningful to all of us, and thank you all for being a part of it. Our job is not to teach, not to convince. We are here to share with those who are ready and guide us to our highest point of impact. So, we want your involvement, participation, inspiration. So by all means, step in. Okay, so today's topic, magnetize your mind with intense desire. And that actually comes from Napoleon Hill's book, Think and Grow Rich. This topic is been around. It is important, and I'm actually going to ask Christy to give us a little insight on why she felt this was important for us right now. Christy?
Napoleon Hill has been my major influence and inspiration. And I don't know how much everyone knows about him, but he interviewed over 25,000 people, worked with the 500 wealthiest people in the world in his time to find out what was the common denominator that they all had that made them the wealthiest, most successful people in the world. And I wanted to know what that was. And by the title, Think and Grow Rich, I think that really short changes the substance that is in the book, because what he is really talking about is that feeling, that burning desire, and then the psychic ability that we all have to tap into infinite intelligence to be able to combine the two of those. And then his being able to define what a mastermind community is, what a mastermind group. And he found that all of these 500 people at that time had mastermind groups of 50 and more people working together, sharing their knowledge, and essentially creating additional minds through infinite intelligence to help them elevate their goal. So that's what, to me, now with the insight that I get, I am inspired to be able to create an additional platform, an optional platform for all of us that's completely void of all of the coronavirus and the political talk and all of that. It's just completely void of that. And we're creating a utopia of for our highest good, for all of our individual highest good.
For pure positive energy.
Right.
And it's interesting because what that brings up for me is mastermind. Sometimes you hear that in context of well, it could be for malicious or ill purpose. Right. So this is a mastermind group for how we can create a higher vibration, a higher consciousness. How do we come together to deliberately co-create? Right.
And Napoleon Hill, I'm just going to read a little insert from the book of his definition of what can be accomplished through a mastermind group. And it's no two minds ever come together without thereby creating a third invisible, intangible force, which may be likened to the third eye. The increased energy becomes available to every individual in the group. So I think that's what else he says is the coordination of knowledge and effort in the spirit of harmony between two or more people for the attainment of definite purpose. That's what Carnegie, Getty, Rockefellers, all of them lived by creating these they didn't live, they got to where they were by creating these mastermind groups.
Mhm.
So that's my intention, our intention, to be able to have these conversations to help us all understand and grow and expand.
Great, thank you. So who on the call? I mean, has anyone not studied or read the book of Napoleon Hill?
Nope,
No,
read it a
good.
long
Everyone's
time ago.
fairly familiar.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
All right. So, and not that, again, I say this for myself, not that Napoleon Hill is the only one, but it's interesting to me how so many years ago, right, this knowledge, this information is available to all. And
Right.
and who read it, who attained it, who put these groups together to build or co-create, right? So deliberately create. Now, there may be, again, we hear, and sometimes we probably hear of the ones that did it for other ill reasons, right? So, for us, this is very much about how do we come together and how do we inspire one another and reach our ultimate ambition. And I say ultimate ambition, right? Whether it's your goal, whether it's your desire, and maybe Christy, you can speak to that a little bit as well. Is there is a being more definitive, more specific with what it is you're looking to achieve is also part of this, right?
Right. And that's why it's in chapter 1, he truly touches on becoming obsessed, all consumed with a desire. And I think it's important to go back just a second with the Think and Grow Rich with the title. I don't look at the word rich as just money. I look at it as having abundance in every aspect of my life. So when we talk about rich or money, and I use those terms, that can be applied in any aspect of our lives. But when I was reading it, one thing I was so taken aback by how much he talks about insight and infinite intelligence and receiving and communicating with infinite intelligence. This guy was back in the 30s, and he was openly talking about this with Rockefeller, the Gettys, Carnegie. All of these people were openly talking about receiving this insight and how to work with it. So that's what I think is, I don't know who all, I think everyone here knows, I receive insight from collaborative infinite intelligence. It's like a collaborative group. It's not just one source of infinite intelligence. So with part of our statement of it's not our job to teach or convince, we're here to share with those who are ready. That was insight that I received from infinite intelligence. It was the first message I got clear as day. And then I've been guided to Napoleon Hill. For all of us to get to our highest point of impact, this is the quickest way to do it. And what I've always felt is when people have like those more mood boards or vision boards, what's truly missing is the feeling, and being able to truly feel and immerse all 5 of your senses into what it is that we visualize. And Napoleon Hill is able to describe it so well about truly becoming all obsessed with what your focus is. And if you don't know what your focus or what your purpose is, it's picking a specific dollar amount that will get you to the lifestyle that you choose, right? Because we all need money, whether we like it or not. We have to have money to be able to survive in society. So it's choosing what that dollar amount is. For me, my obsession was leaving my 3 daughters an empire. I want to leave them an empire. So I focused on that. And I didn't want to just leave a little trust. I want to leave them $1 billion empire. That was my focus. And by focusing on that and obsessing on that single desire, I was guided to the Center for Creators. So that's what he talks about in the first chapter, and being very specific. Had I been more specific with the dollar amount from the beginning, had I been more specific with a timeline and a specific date that I was going to achieve this by, things would have moved a lot faster. So that's what I think this chapter is important for. When we don't know what the next step is, it's okay. It's knowing where you want to be in, say, in a year or 5 years.
Right. And so I have to ask now, because it's a you threw that out there, $1 billion empire.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It took me a while.
Right. Well, how many people are comfortable with that? And what does that mean? And how are people triggered by that? I mean, I think, it used to be not too many decades ago, being a millionaire was almost to many unattainable. And,
Right.
And now $1 million, if you have $1 million in the bank, you can't retire. So,
Right.
Right. So
Right.
it's our understanding of currency, right? If you talk about the monetary value of currency, completely different than what it used to be. So, right. Now there's songs produced about it, I want to be a billionaire, right?
Right.
So,
right.
What does that mean? And it's interesting how some people are still, I guess, triggered. Their emotion around that is not positive, because it's like, oh, I can't ask for that.
Right. And it took me a while to be able to comfortably say it. I know it and I feel it inside of me, but I still feel a little tweak when I say it out loud in front of a group. But I'm getting more and more comfortable. And why not? Why not? I've raised my children to aim for the stars. Always go, once you start dreaming, you realize you haven't dreamed high enough. And just continue to elevate that dream. And I recognize I wasn't doing that. And what else Napoleon Hill states, which I was doing, and I think all of us were doing with good intentions, right? What are our intentions with doing that? This is an important part of the Think and Grow Rich, is what is the give back? What is it for this empire that I'm creating that I'm going to give back? And that's an important part of this desire. Is my desire is with the insight that I'm able to translate from infinite intelligence. I want to be able to uplift, inspire, and motivate millions of people to get to their highest point of impact.
Well, you may have heard what I often say is you can become a billionaire more than one way, right?
Right.
You can make $1 billion. You can positively affect 1 billion people.
Right.
There's, I think I think people would agree that is a valid definition of being a billionaire.
Right.
I kind of look to our group here is how, one, how are you triggered by this? Have you found it useful, compelling, right? Do you have your own specific ambitions?
I'd like to say to Christy that having $1 billion empire is going to be very easy for you.
I think so. Thank you.
I feel sad that you want to give it to your daughters, because I know the power of doing it myself.
Well, I don't think you know my daughters, though.
Okay.
My daughters are my oldest daughter got a scholarship to Georgetown at 15 and negotiated the scholarship on her own. My middle daughter got a scholarship to Rutgers at 14 and is the youngest softball player ever, and will be the youngest softball player ever to commit to Rutgers University. My girls work their booties off. So, no, I understand what you're saying, but they're a little different. So, and they may not want it, but that's
Well,
I
I think that
understand. I understand. But where I'm coming from is the joy, the absolute utter joy of creating something, knowing that you created it. It's not handed to me. I have never had anything handed to me.
right.
And I know
I haven't either. I haven't either, and neither have my girls. Neither have my girls. I didn't send my daughter a dime when she was at Georgetown. And now she works for a think tank in DC. She lives in Annapolis, and she, on her own, just got accepted to George Mason for Intel and security. They're for her master's, and they're number 2 in the nation. So it's, who knows if they want this. But I guess I'm not even looking at that because I didn't raise my children that way. I raised them, they work for everything that they have. And, they came from a divorced family, so there wasn't a lot of excess. So I look at it as it's a beautiful gift that I can give children that have worked for everything they have.
I have to read this. This is from Ernest Holmes. As powerful as words are, and as much of an impact as they have on people's lives, good and bad, it is always the emotion behind them that summons the life force, where the creative process begins. Words spoken with heartfelt appreciation will turn pennies into dollars, and it will turn sadness into joy, and it causes the blind to see. What you're talking about is the passion.
Right.
And anyone without passion, that's okay. They'll get there eventually.
It's the passion that drives the momentum and pulls that energy and that desire back to you. It's absolutely feeling it and recognizing that when they talk about, when he talks about burning desire, it literally comes from the base of your stomach or lower. You can feel that burning focus and desire coming literally from within. And that's what, on the last call, we were talking about, that feeling and recognizing those feelings. That's the energy of burning desire. And it's being able to get to that point where we allow ourselves to recognize that's what we're feeling, and that's what we need to encourage to get the momentum going.
And learn to love that, not to be afraid of it.
Right.
Learn to love it. I mean, last week I was talking about my teeth vibrating for a week when I first got the idea. And I wasn't talking about just being connected. I mean, I like to think of myself as being connected most of the time.
Right.
When I got an idea that was so powerful that I couldn't deny it, that feeling was unlike anything I've ever experienced before.
Right.
And to me, ideas are the currency of life.
Right. And recognizing sometimes those ideas, like sometimes I get kind of lightheaded and woozy when I get a download of insight or one of those ideas where it's just so powerful, and recognizing that when it's, I guess how else to explain, it doesn't always feel good when you're connecting to the energy, but like you're saying, Karen, learning that it doesn't mean it's a bad thing.
It's a wonderful thing.
Right. It's not always a warm, fuzzy feeling. So, but learning to go with those and allowing those feelings to guide you to what it is that is the next step.
And that's all they are. They're guidance. It's not good or bad. It's just guidance.
Right.
Well, and it's also, I guess that brings up the point you talked about, what you do with it, right? Because if it's a pure positive thought, if there's energy moving towards something that you feel is empowering and inspiring and good to, it's that flow, right? It's that you can't just, you want to be open to receive, and you want to be open to share. right? So how and where that flows and how that money flows, it seems to me it's a very big part of that.
May I add
Go ahead.
something?
Yes.
Sure.
The one thing that I really want to add to this is Lisa, by the way. I'm sorry, my camera's off right now.
That's all
Is,
right.
is belief.
Mhm.
Because the belief is what will allow you to continue going forward. It is to your very core and soul that once you
Right.
have that idea, that belief in that idea is
Right.
going to allow you to drive forward, so that no matter who, what circumstances, no matter what, that belief is almost like the laser that allows you to take that idea, the desire, the passion forward.
Right. It's the knowing. It's
And it's
absolutely knowing without a doubt.
Yeah,
that
never
when
wavering.
when you are focused on a desire, it will absolutely happen. And that's why I can honestly, I know I'm going to have $1 billion empire. I absolutely, with every cell in my body, I know that. But it took me, I mean, it took a lot to be able to get, this is the largest, amount of people I've said it in front of, but I'm like, why not? Why not?
And why shouldn't we?
There are no limits. There are no limits.
There are no limits. And I've learned through Napoleon Hill that being able to focus on a specific amount by a specific time, and I've broken down my plan as to how I'm going to get there in incremental dollar amounts. And I have, by next year on my birthday, I'm going to have this many millions. By, by my 60s, I'm going to have this. By the time I pass, I'm going to have $1 billion. Before I pass, I'm going to have $1 billion empire, right? But what I learned is when you are I didn't realize how important it is to have a date and a specific amount and go big. Why not? Right?
You have to believe
in
it.
the beginning, I would hit small chunks, right? And now I see those small chunks coming in. And now I'm like, okay, well, why can't I go for 100 grand next month? Why not?
Right. And Christy, is it, because we've talked about this, but I've also heard this in other areas, the importance of specifics, setting a time, setting a date, setting an amount. What is your thinking or feeling behind why that is so important, and not just saying $1 billion?
Right. Well, and also one of the most important things is, what is it that you're going to give in return for that? Right? It's a combination of things. What is it that you're going to give in return? You want it, it's, karma. You kind of want to give when you're being given to. So it's when you have the specific number and date and what you're giving in return, you can feel it. You don't have to know exactly what the business is, what the purpose is, but when you are so specific, it gives you that burning desire. Right? So what is it that you want to give in return? And it doesn't have to be what the business is, but emotionally, right? Like, how do you want to feel as you're working to acquire this financial sum? How is it that you want to feel? I want to feel that I uplift and inspire and motivate by the gift that I was given to be able to interpret insight, right? So it took me longer. I could have done it much quicker had I read the book. Really, I could have cut out a few years. So
We still have plenty of time.
yeah,
So,
no, that's where I'm like, you know what? I had to go through everything I went through to be ready.
That's right.
So that's why.
Sorry, I just want to jump in here on a comment of what you said, talking about the emotion of it. And
Right.
it reminds me of a quote that Albert Einstein said, or what his process was. And if he had a problem to solve, out of an hour, he would spend 55 minutes emotionally getting in touch with what would happen when he solved this problem, and then taking 5 minutes to solve the problem.
Right.
So that, to me, when I first read that from him, it left me scratching my head, because I thought he was, he's steeped in math. He's a quant guy and a conceptual guy, but to get in touch with it emotionally, to be able to powerfully solve the problem, is a really interesting idea.
Right. He was, well, Karen knows a lot about Einstein. He was, and this is what blows my mind. I never realized how in tune these people were to receiving insight, and that they knew their connection to energy and receiving. And that's what he clearly understood, was that he knew that's how you ask. That's your ask. When you figure out how you want it to feel after you've solved the problem, you're allowing the universe to send you the solution.
That's right.
Right?
Can I
And that's
add
what
something?
Einstein did. And I've been, the older I get, the more I believe, don't worry about the how. Worry about what it is that you want to do. Focus on what it is that you want to accomplish.
Yeah.
Just one thing about
Yeah, Lisa,
Einstein.
go ahead.
Einstein was an initiate. I think he came from the Golden Dawn. That's the mystery schools. That's where you do have a different understanding of how the universe works, besides being the brilliant scientist he was, in addition to being the brilliant scientist he was. So, Christy, that is part of the mystery.
But
And he
I'm sorry,
lived
expand on that, because I'm not sure if I heard it correctly. You're saying he was part of the Golden Dawn. What is that?
It's a mystery school. It was a mystery school back in, it's in England. There are mystery schools around the world that support the evolution of mankind. Almost all of them are secret, except for, I guess right now I'm going to say the Modern Mystery School up in Canada, and there is part of the Golden Dawn that still is also operating out of London. Karen, do you know about this?
I have heard it. I don't know that much about it.
Okay, all right.
Well, can I add this, Lisa?
Of course.
Also, Jesus belonged to the Essenes, which was
Right.
another mystery school.
Yeah.
And many of us, myself included, I know, were a part of the Essenes. It's quite an interesting study about the Essenes, but that's where he learned a lot of his information about healing and other philosophies and things.
Oh, so
Right.
these were communities where you can have conversations to expand your knowledge?
Well,
I
they
knew you were
were,
going there.
wait a
Yeah,
minute.
no, I love it. That's what we're doing.
Well, we're creating more of a modern one right now, but these were
Right.
very, very secret. Nobody knew about them. You had to be invited, and they there were 12 at one time all over the world, and now I think we're down to 7. And they operate in ways in which we, as I'll say, who we are here and now, would not necessarily be a part of their mystery school, because they're doing the higher, I'm going to say, the weaving of the world to help it keep going, if that makes sense to everybody.
I'd love for you to expand on it. Actually, I mean, I think I know what it means, but what does it mean to you?
Okay. The mystery schools. Okay, this will be the easiest way for me to explain it to you. The Golden Dawn in London, the mystery school is of the throat. So if you think of in terms of what goes out in the world, if you think about everything that came from England and London and everything, our mystery school here in the western side is the one of the heart. They hold different energies from different areas of the universe to continue it going forward. They are not public at all. They are the ones that hold the energy. I mean, Walt Disney, think about it. Walt Disney was an initiate. Think of what he did with the fairy tales. Think how much he taught us. Think of how he found a way to instill in us the stories, the hope, the hero, all of that. I guess I'm
Right, it
adding.
would make sense that he had to collaborate to do that with brilliant minds, right?
Yes.
That understand. There you have the mastermind group.
Right.
And also the practice of, I mean, I think this is something that has become more and more accepting. I think probably a good word to use finally is that it is okay to trust our thoughts, our feelings, our emotions, and you know, the masculine, the feminine, the ability to actually visualize something and know that you have the power to make it real.
Right, and going to limiting beliefs that, I mean, I'm thinking about it now, that talking about me feeling uncomfortable, or am I uncomfortable saying I want to build $1 billion empire? That's society's limiting belief that I should feel uncomfortable talking about it, or that I should really worry about what anyone else thinks.
Right.
Can I ask Sam a question?
Sure.
Sam, you still there? Because you and I have talked about what the potential of the Federal Reserve and the central bank and going back onto gold standard or whatever they're going to do. How do you think, because we are still, Christy, a lot of us are still thinking in terms of our current monetary system, $1 billion. Well, what if dollars don't exist in a year?
I know you're asking Sam, and I'll come back to this because I do want Sam to answer your
Right.
question. But
Right.
but we're not all thinking that way. I for one am not thinking that way. I'm thinking of alternative currencies that I do
Right.
believe will happen.
And we are, invested in other currencies. So when I say $1 billion, it's in some form of a currency.
Right, yeah. I think what's going to happen eventually is when we do the transition to sound money, and I think the objective is to have it, at one time, the dollar was backed by gold, right? They took it off, the Nixon took it off the gold standard because there was a raid on gold, because they were exchanging dollars for gold, so they stopped that. So make sure we don't get depleted of gold, because people realize that the funny money was starting to come in once they took it off. So when we get back to the gold standard, then that's when money will be money, because you can't play with that, right? I mean, you can't inflate it. Look, the dollar, when it first started, it's worth about 2 cents. The dollar is now worth 2 or 3 cents over the past, 30 years. But if you're on a gold standard, sound money, that won't happen. Right, so then it'll be a totally different type of economy where people could now be able to, without inflation, be able to have the things without having to chase it, because this obviously was good for the elite group of people that bought real estate, hard assets, and most of the other people couldn't afford to do that. So that's why it kind of skewed the wealth globally. It got into too many small hands to the small percentage of the people.
Right,
So I think it's going to be more allow the other middle class to participate.
Right, and I truly see the Center for Creators as the alternative platform, where, not to be naive and not aware as to what's happening, but we absolutely have the energy to create whatever platform we choose to, and we can absolutely have the abundance we choose to. However the currency comes to us, it comes to us, but we can create whatever flow we want.
You just have to adapt and shift to the new changes that's happening.
Absolutely. And that's what Scott and I do with working together.
Portfolio.
Yeah, it's stepping out ahead and pivoting. figuring out how you're going to pivot, being aware of what's going to be needed. And that's kind of like the insight that I've been tapping into, is what's going to be needed in 3 months, 6 months, 9 months. It's going to be different. How do we pivot? How do we shift?
Yeah,
So,
oh,
no,
sorry,
I mean,
I didn't mean to interrupt, but I wanted to say, and this is to Christy's point of even we didn't come together to co-create this that long ago, right? This is very early in all of you in the very beginning of this. And even in the short time that we did and have, the opportunities that have already presented itself are
everything.
immense. And I mean immense, just the type of ideas and forward thinking conversations that are real potential businesses, right? Behind this as well. And Sherry, to your point, what we're talking about is building these types of transactional opportunities, revenue opportunities, wealth building opportunities that are more based on whatever the current currency platform will be, right? So it doesn't matter. I mean, it does matter, but we still can produce.
I was just
the same
asking
way.
because, again, as long as we can pivot. I know a lot of people in our New Thought circles get so tunnel visioned that it's sometimes very difficult for them to pivot. So I was just bringing this out for conversation.
Yeah, I accept. And hey, since we are, though, and I won't hide behind it either, but since we are talking about this type of new currency and digital platform, right? There's many have a belief, I am included in this, that the next, digital gold is Bitcoin. And whether Bitcoin is the currency or not, doesn't matter. Blockchain is in fact going to be the indisputable ledger that this all rides on top of. And so the wealth value and how that you will be able to monetize that over time is just tremendous, because we cannot, and Sam's right, we cannot continue to go down the course that we currently are. We've already lost 98% of the value of the dollar. People don't even realize that, right? Since in the last 30 years, we've lost 98% of the value.
Well, I live in an abundant universe that delights in expressing its limitless supply through me.
Yes.
How that comes to me, I am open to it.
Right.
Exactly.
That's what I'm feeling. It's nice. And what I do with the news and everything that's going on is be aware, but I'm aware to the point where it doesn't emotionally suck me in. Because then when I'm emotionally sucked in, unless it's elevating me, I'm feeding an energy that I don't want to draw back to me. So that's where, again, we can create what the alternative platform.
Does anybody know here? I know Scott knows. Does anybody else know that I am a real estate agent? I'm a real estate agent. And I live this belief. I live in an abundant universe that delights in expressing its limitless supply through me. And through this whole mess that's been going on in the past couple of months, my income has increased.
Yep.
Can I just, Christy,
Yes.
throw something real quick in FYI because of our conversation yesterday?
Right.
What you're talking about with the passion and the feeling, so that it's the magnet that draws this in. That is Greg Braden's whole premise and his research that brought him into the Lost Mode of Prayer book. Are you aware of that?
I'm very aware that he has that belief. Yes,
it's actually in the book. His research.
Oh, okay. I'm not aware of the
with
book.
the indigenous and the monasteries and the monks and from
right. I remember seeing a video with him. Was it Greg Braden, the one with the Indian out in the rain with the Indian praying for rain?
Yes, it was a friend of his. Yes,
Okay,
in northern New Mexico. Yeah,
Yeah.
but it's in the book from all of these different cultures that the way they achieve their manifestation is exactly what,
Right,
this
'cause
is
they
all
weren't-
about.
Right. They didn't pray for the rain. They immersed themselves
In the feeling. of it.
in the feeling of the rain. And they
Yeah.
talked as though these were the Indians, how they do their rain dance. They're not actually asking for rain. They are feeling the rain. They are seeing the rain. They are
Yes.
experiencing it.
Which is exactly what Einstein
beautiful.
did. It's exactly what Einstein did
Yeah.
with being in the solution.
Right, exactly. And immersing yourself in how it feels, Terry,
How-
like what you were saying, once I have that, how am I going to feel? Right? And then that's when I throw out there and I just ask the universe, show me how. Show me. Or even sometimes I don't even say how, I'm just like, show me. This is how I'm going to feel. Show me how to get there.
And if you're comfortable speaking to this, Christy, it's how you maintain that feeling and not sabotage your own feelings.
Right. Right. That is an easy little trail to go down. But it's what I do is as soon as I recognize it, I become very proud of myself instead of being hard on myself, and redirect my thought into something positive as quickly as possible. And it just becomes habit. Going down negative thoughts. What is it, through Cornell University? They determine that 85% of our thoughts are repeated thoughts from the day before. And like 80 to 90% of those thoughts are negative thoughts. They're habits that we've had for our entire lives that we're trying to shift now. So not being hard on yourself when we do that. And just, I'm really proud of myself when I recognize that I'm having a thought that's not moving me forward in life, or I've said something, or, I react with Scarlett. I have a 15-year-old girl.
So I'm
being quarantined.
Yeah, and I want to go to that quote you just said, or the percentage, right? 95% of our
Huge.
thoughts can be negative thoughts. So just imagine if only 5% of our thoughts are focused on pure positive energy in the direction of your ultimate ambition or your desire or your goal, whatever that is that you want to create. If we only move the needle to 10%, just 10, you've then doubled.
Right.
You've doubled the potential.
And even just recognizing it kind of nullifies. I look at it that thought,
Right.
Okay, I recognized it. I stopped before it got to 17 seconds. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Abraham Hicks, and she talks about the 17-second theory, where if you hold a pure thought for 17 seconds, you've generated the momentum. If you continue to add to that thought for a total of 64 seconds, you've launched the rocket for that idea. So that's where, when I have those thoughts that are limiting, I always go, okay, did I keep it under 17 seconds? Did the universe not have enough of that thought to be able to generate it? So that's where I just try and make it light and not be hard on myself.
Yeah, have fun
And
with it.
that's so true.
I mean, what I'm just drawn to and what I would like to do is to work on all of the chapters of this book, maybe not in order, and maybe we'll have calls or conversations in addition to that, in the middle of it. But I think what was most important for me to get out of this chapter is writing down the specifics, because I was always afraid to do that. I was afraid to write the date and the amount and what I was going to accomplish. Write it down, and I read it. I have it on my nightstand. I read it before I get out of my bed. I get up and I have a cup of coffee and I read it again. And then if I read it in the middle of the day, and I read it before I go to bed. And that's where he talks about being obsessed with that desire. And it's kind of I have to force myself to do it, or remind myself it's not a force, but I know with every ounce of my being, if I do this, I absolutely will have what it is that I'm looking to achieve. I can achieve it.
Then you will.
Right?
That's right.
Mhm.
Will.
And we will.
Right. And that's what I just want all of us to be able to work together to encourage each other, that we can do that.
Thank you.
We all have the ability.
Thank you.
And a big thumbs up from Terry. All right. Well, again, I really appreciate all of your time. We
I
are
do too. It's
the
good
Center for
stuff.
Creators, and thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye.
Everyone have a beautiful week. Hope to see you next week.
Thanks, everyone.
Talk to you all
Thank
soon.
you.
Okay. Bye.